Hello there, Scott from Wessex Blades. Quick one today, bit of a rundown on some possible blade designs for a prospective customer. Bit of fun as well, seeing what I've drawn. This guy was after a bit of a heavy chopper bush tool. The influences that he was throwing at me were the Lofty Wiseman tool. Obviously I'm aware that Chris Kane's done a lot of work designing his own one, so that'll be thrown in the mix as well. We got the Bear Grylls Gerber one, and lately in the last day or so he's mentioned the Rambo 4. So we'll go through a few of the designs that I've come up with from those initial influences. Now, even when I'm drawing it, I'm getting my hand used to drawing the shape and the curves and the radiuses of all these knives. So when I take the designs, you know, off a picture and an image, I'm changing it before it goes to paper. So already I'm trying to migrate away from that initial design, because the last thing I want to do is rip someone's knife off. I mean, I've actually messaged a few times backwards and forwards from Chris Kane, so the last thing I'm going to do is go, well, I'll just make him Chris Kane. I'm not going to do that. That's not fair on someone else's work. That's, you know, they've gone through a production and come up with their own design. So the essences of these three blades, you got a Lofty up top. Obviously he spent years coming up with this design, so that's the essence of it. Again, that's the Chris Kane, that's the essence of it, and I've even changed a lot of the handle on the Bear Grylls. So this is getting my hand used to drawing the size and the shape of these type of blades, of what this chap's after. Okay, so from those influences I then come up with my own design. So what I've come up with is the Damonstyle. I've got to say it wrong because Damon is devil or demon, and Damen is a woman, so I can either have a woman's stool or a demon steel, so I've got to get it absolutely right. One's more manly than the other. Okay, so here is the Damonstyle. Got to get that right. There's so many ways of getting it wrong. Okay, and obviously thumping great woods chopper, a lot of weight at the front. He was after a very squared off, sharpened spine there for using ferro rods on, rounded up this end for doing draw knifing. I've given it a bit of a demonic handle at the end, plenty of pins to make it really strong. Obviously I'm trying to balance the heavyweight this end with enough meat on the scales that end, so you end up with something that's like a sword. I mean, if you had a sword without a pommel on it, the damn thing would be blade heavy and it would chop all right, but it'd be exhausting to use. So all that theory is trying to get the balance point, so it's not here, it's more like here, so it's not exhausting to use. Now I come up with this Damonstyle, and he's since messaged me that he was interested in something along the lines of a simplistic, straighter profile Rambo 4 thing. Now I've got a Rambo 4 clone. Okay, I have used it a few times, but I really find it's very limited. When old Stallone went up to Gil Hibben and ran through a few of these designs for this Rambo 4, a lot of the initial ones were had too much finesse in them, and what Stallone was after was something that was made hurriedly at night in a forge using a leaf spring. So they eventually come up with this crude, it's a killing machine. Okay, so if you have a look at that profile, it's not going to be a wonderful bush blade. It's not going to be great for detail work, and the hurried, hastily in the film handle, okay, would be good enough for 5 minutes of battle, but to be honest, as a tool trusted by your side, you're going to get years and years and years of worth of. It's not going to do the job, and it hurts like hell in that section there. Okay, because the metal's exposed, you got 6mm there digging into your little finger every time you're trying to use it. So in terms of you know, an attractive blade that, you know, gets people's attention, it's a beauty, but what I was trying to get towards was something that's a lot more easier to use than something that's crude like this. And then he was using the idea of having a paracord handle to use as cordage. So going from that as an influence, and the previous other ones, knowing what he's going to try and use them for, what I've come up with are these two designs, which I hope you'll pass comment on or use ideas or influences from it. Okay, now the first one I've called the Assassin, because that's basically, it's an assassin blade. The thing was built to just kill and maim. It's not a sort of bush thing I'm going to make in. I'd rather make something that was a lot more useful. So here we go. Not as sharp, because we want to use this for draw knifing, so it's got a rounded end. I've fattened it up slightly, I've shortened it slightly. Where the paracord comes through, the last thing I wanted was that abrupt end there. So I've put a sort of hawk handle, of which I did on the Berserker, so it's not so harsh on your fingers. I put a sort of another choil in there to make it useful, and you can actually imagine your thumb going in there, your hand going over the top of that hump, and you can use that, you know, to pull and do all sorts of stuff with that rounded end there. You can hang on to the knife through there and use it a different amount of ways. Okay, so that's the Assassin with only a paracord handle. Now what I was trying to get towards was something that if you were going to use that cordage, or you're going to show someone that I can take it off and use it, I find paracord does migrate. I find paracord does wear out because you've got the sharp edge, and unless you put you file a little notch in there, or every now and again, this stuff sort of slides backwards and forwards. I don't really like the idea of that. So what I've come up with is a hybrid. So I've got wooden scale handles with paracord on top, but what happens is this would start out about 5mm thick at the two ends on either side. Where the paracord would be accommodated, it would be thinner. So you would have like the metal and 3mm either side. You'd have a 9mm handle generally in the center, so it's still very usable without the paracord. But even when the paracord's on, it won't want to slide backwards and forwards because the thicker two ends will contain it. So it'd be thick there, drop down, and move back up again. So it would contain the paracord and give you something with more substance anyway. And then the other benefit of all that scale, of all that wood at that end, and pins because you need to hold it on, and epoxy, is that you balance that heavy end over there and you make it like a sword. If a sword hasn't got a pommel on, it isn't as balanced because you're not counteracting the weight where the handle is with the blade at the other end, so it's a lot less fatigue using. Alright, so that's why I've come up with this, and you can pass judgment on it, it's fine, it's an idea I've had. And the other thing I've done is I've done two different blade profiles, and you can pick between the two or slight variances on them. Okay, so we've got a very sharp straight section there, and a little bit less, a bit like I've got an Itor El Montero, and that's a little bit narrow in that section, and I've sort of hinted it a bit towards that. Okay, so there's two more designs, of which the chap who's interested in it, I mean, you could choose anything from those, or let's get it right, it's not the woman's stool, it's the demon steel, so it's the demon Stahl of those. So here we go. Any ideas? But I think what he's after is something more between those. Right, this is Scott from Wessex Blade. Thanks Mitch for filming again. I'll see you on the next video. Cheers.